Pain changes people. It breaks you open, strips away illusions, and exposes who you truly are. But what if the very thing that shattered you was never meant to destroy you, only to awaken you? What if your greatest suffering holds the blueprint for your greatest transformation? Every scar tells a story, but only those who face their pain discover its power. This is the journey of turning pain into purpose, where what once wounded you becomes what fuels you. Every human life encounters a moment that divides it, before and after. It may come as heartbreak, betrayal, loss, or disappointment. The world as you knew it collapses, and suddenly, nothing feels stable anymore. The dreams you held dissolve. The certainty you once trusted vanishes. And in the silence that follows, you're left with one question: why me? But what if that question is incomplete? What if the real question isn't why me, but what is this trying to show me? Pain has a way of forcing us to meet ourselves. It strips away everything superficial until only truth remains. It demands that we stop running, stop pretending, and start listening. Because beneath every wound lies wisdom, hidden lessons about who we are, what we value, and what we're capable of becoming. Pain doesn't arrive to punish you, it arrives to awaken you to the parts of yourself you've forgotten. It's the soul's alarm clock, shaking you out of unconscious living. Turning pain into purpose begins when you decide that your story will not end in suffering. It begins when you stop asking for life to be easy and start asking for the strength to transform it. Purpose is born the moment you give meaning to your pain. It's when you say, "This will not be wasted." The heartbreak becomes empathy. The loss becomes clarity. The failure becomes direction. Every painful experience, when understood, becomes fuel for growth, and growth is the birthplace of purpose. This journey is not about denying pain or dressing it up with false positivity. It's about facing it, feeling it, and finding the message hidden within it. You don't overcome pain by ignoring it. You transcend it by transforming it. You learn that healing is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new one. One where you no longer see yourself as a victim of what happened, but as the creator of what happens next. Because purpose isn't found in the absence of pain, it's discovered in what you choose to do with it. And when you turn your pain into purpose, you don't just heal yourself, you light the way for others still lost in their darkness. Chapter 1. The Wound That Awakens. There are moments in life that pierce so deeply, they leave a silence that words cannot touch, a betrayal that shatters trust, a loss that cracks your heart open, a failure that shakes your very identity. These are not just painful events, they are awakenings disguised as endings. When the familiar world falls apart, something ancient inside you begins to stir. The wound becomes a doorway, forcing you to step into a deeper truth about who you are and what life is asking of you. Pain is not random, it is intelligent. It shows up exactly where your illusions live, in the places where you've mistaken comfort for peace, attachment for love, and control for strength. The wound comes to show you what you've been blind to. It arrives to dismantle the false self, to pull apart the layers of pretending and performance that kept you asleep. It doesn't ask for your permission. It demands your transformation. And though it may feel cruel, its purpose is sacred, to awaken you from unconscious living. At first, the pain feels unbearable. You may try to escape it through distraction, denial, or endless busyness. But the more you resist, the louder it becomes, because pain, when ignored, doesn't disappear. It multiplies. It will echo in your thoughts, reflect in your relationships, and repeat in your experiences until you finally turn toward it and say, "I'm ready to listen." That moment, the decision to stop running, is when awakening begins. The wound doesn't just break you, it introduces you to yourself. It reveals your hidden strength, your raw sensitivity, your capacity to survive. It strips away the masks you wore for acceptance and forces you to meet the person behind them, the real you, vulnerable yet powerful. Pain becomes a mirror, showing you where love is missing, where boundaries are weak, and where healing is long overdue. What feels like destruction is, in truth, revelation. Every awakening begins with a wound. It's life's way of shaking your soul awake, saying, "You are meant for more than this." And though you may not see it now, this pain will one day become your proof. Proof that endings can become beginnings, that heartbreak can birth wholeness, and that your darkest night can lead you straight to your purpose. The wound is not your enemy, it's your initiation. Chapter 2. Naming the Hurt. Healing begins the moment you give your pain a name. Until then, it's just a shadow that follows you, shaping your emotions, decisions, and relationships in silence. Most people live unaware of the wounds that drive them. They feel restless, defensive, or unfulfilled, but they can't trace the source. That's because unacknowledged pain doesn't disappear. It disguises itself. It hides behind anger, perfectionism, withdrawal, or constant busyness. But naming the hurt brings it into the light, and only what's brought to light can be healed. To name your hurt is to tell the truth about your story. It's looking yourself in the mirror and saying, "This is where it hurts." Not to dramatize, not to dwell, but to understand. Because pain that is not named remains powerful. Pain that is named loses its grip. When you identify what truly wounded you, not just what happened, but how it made you feel, you reclaim your power from it. Maybe it wasn't just the betrayal that broke you, but the feeling of being unseen. Maybe it wasn't the loss that scarred you, but the fear of being alone. Naming the real emotion underneath the event reveals what your heart has been carrying in silence. Many people fear this step because they equate acknowledgement with weakness. But the opposite is true. Denial might feel safe, but it keeps you frozen. Naming your pain is not self-pity, it's self-respect. It's saying, "My experience matters. My feelings deserve to be understood." When you name your hurt, you stop being a silent participant in your own suffering. You give your pain a voice, and in doing so, you begin to take back your story. This process requires honesty and gentleness. Sometimes the hurt is so old you've built your personality around it. The child who felt unworthy becomes the adult who seeks constant validation. The one who was silenced becomes the one who fears speaking truth. To name the hurt, you must peel back these layers and meet the version of yourself that was first wounded. Not to stay there, but to comfort that inner part of you. To tell them, "I see you, I know what you went through, and you're safe now." Naming the hurt doesn't heal everything overnight, but it begins the sacred unraveling. The emotions that once felt unbearable start to soften under the light of awareness. You begin to understand your reactions, your triggers, your fears, not as flaws, but as messages. And slowly, clarity replaces confusion. The chaos within starts to take shape, and pain turns into something you can finally work with. Because once your hurt has a name, your healing has a direction. Chapter 3. The Anatomy of Suffering. Suffering is more than pain. It's pain we hold on to. It's the echo that remains long after the event is over, replaying itself through our thoughts, our bodies, and our choices. Where pain is a wound, suffering is the scar that never heals because it keeps being reopened. To understand suffering, you must first see how it operates, how it feeds on your emotions, your memories, and your attachment to what should have been. Only when you understand its anatomy can you begin to dissolve it. Suffering begins in the mind, not the event. The mind takes what happened and builds a story around it, a narrative of blame, loss, and injustice. It replays conversations, rewrites scenarios, and loops in endless what-ifs. This is how pain becomes prolonged, by reliving it instead of releasing it. The mind, trying to protect you, clings to the wound so it can predict future harm. But in doing so, it keeps you trapped in the past. You can't step forward when your inner world is still bleeding from yesterday. Next, suffering seeps into the body. Every emotion you suppress becomes stored energy. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. The tightness in your chest, the tension in your shoulders, the heaviness in your gut. These are not random discomforts. They are unexpressed emotions asking to be acknowledged. The body speaks the language of truth. When you ignore your pain, it doesn't vanish. It settles in your muscles, your breath, your posture, even your health. The body becomes the silent archive of all the stories you haven't finished feeling. But perhaps the deepest layer of suffering lives in identity. Over time, we begin to identify with our pain. I am broken. I am unworthy. I am a failure. These labels fuse the wound with the self, making healing feel impossible. Yet the truth is, you are not your pain. You are the awareness witnessing it. The moment you can observe your suffering rather than become it, you create distance. In that distance lies freedom. The pain may still exist, but it no longer defines who you are. Understanding the anatomy of suffering is not about dissecting your trauma. It's about seeing how energy moves through you. Pain enters as experience. Suffering stays as attachment. Pain is what happens. Suffering is what you keep repeating. The mind holds the memory, the body holds the emotion, and the soul waits, patiently, for you to release both. Healing begins when you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" Because once you understand how suffering is built, you also learn how to unbuild it. You begin to notice the patterns, soften the tension, and rewrite the story. You realize that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And in that realization, freedom begins to bloom. Chapter 4. From Story to Signal. Every pain carries a story, the version your mind created to make sense of what happened. You replay it in your thoughts, relive it in your emotions, and retell it in your conversations. The story becomes familiar, almost comforting in its predictability. But if you look closely, you'll notice something powerful. Pain isn't meant to be a story you keep repeating. It's a signal you're meant to decode. When you stop clinging to the story and start listening to the signal, your healing begins to accelerate. The human mind is wired for narrative. When something hurts, we rush to explain it. They betrayed me. I failed again. I'm not enough. These explanations give the illusion of control, but they often trap us in cycles of victimhood and resentment. The story keeps you connected to the past, while the signal invites you into awareness. The story says, "Look what they did to me." The signal whispers, "Look what this is revealing within me." One keeps you wounded. The other opens the path to wisdom. The signal of pain is not about blame. It's about information. Every uncomfortable emotion carries a message about your boundaries, your needs, or your beliefs. Anger signals a boundary crossed. Sadness signals something that needs to be released. Fear signals where trust is missing. When you treat these emotions as messengers instead of enemies, they guide you toward the exact parts of your life that need attention. The wound becomes a teacher, not a tormentor. To move from story to signal, you must practice awareness without judgment. When an emotion rises, pause before reacting. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Maybe your story says, "No one listens to me," but the signal is saying, "You've stopped expressing yourself with confidence." Maybe your story says, "People always leave me," but the signal is showing, "It's time to build inner security so you no longer depend on others for stability." This shift from external blame to internal understanding is how pain transforms into power. As you begin to decode the signals behind your pain, life starts to make sense in ways it never did before. The patterns that once confused you begin to reveal their purpose. You realize that your emotions were never the problem. It was your interpretation of them. The more you listen to what your pain is saying, the less you need to suffer from it. The story fades, but the wisdom remains. Because pain, when understood, is not a curse. It's communication. It's your soul speaking in the only language it knows, emotion. And when you finally listen, when you stop retelling the story and start receiving the message, you no longer need the pain to teach you. You've learned the lesson. Chapter 5. Embracing the Shadow. There's a side of you that rarely sees the light, the one that carries shame, anger, jealousy, fear, and all the emotions you were taught to suppress. This side is what psychologists call the shadow. It's the collection of parts you've disowned in order to fit in, be loved, or appear strong. But here's the truth most people never realize. You cannot heal what you continue to hide. The parts of you you've rejected are not your enemies. They are wounded fragments of your truth waiting to be seen, heard, and reintegrated. The shadow isn't evil, it's misunderstood. When you deny your anger, it doesn't disappear. It hides and grows in silence. When you ignore your jealousy, it morphs into bitterness. When you suppress your sadness, it hardens into numbness. Every emotion you bury stays alive inside you, shaping your behavior from the background. The more you run from your shadow, the louder it screams through your triggers, your relationships, and your choices. Healing begins when you stop running and turn to face it. Embracing your shadow means sitting with discomfort and allowing your feelings to exist without judgment. It's saying, "Yes, I feel angry," instead of pretending you're fine. It's admitting, "I feel envious," and exploring what that envy reveals about what you truly desire. It's acknowledging your pain, your mistakes, and your insecurities, not to drown in them, but to free yourself from their hidden control. When you bring light to the shadow, it stops needing to act out in darkness. To do this, you must practice radical honesty with yourself. When something triggers you, instead of projecting the blame outward, ask, "What part of me is being mirrored right now?" Perhaps someone's arrogance irritates you because it reflects your own buried desire to feel confident. Or maybe someone's emotional distance hurts you because it mirrors the walls you've built around your own heart. Every irritation is an invitation to see yourself more clearly. The shadow's role is not to shame you, it's to reveal you. As you begin to embrace your shadow, compassion naturally replaces judgment. You stop labeling your emotions as good or bad and start understanding them as necessary. Anger becomes a protector of your boundaries. Fear becomes a guide toward courage. Sadness becomes a bridge back to your heart. Integration happens when you stop fighting these parts and start listening to them. You no longer split yourself into light and dark. You become whole. When you finally accept that your shadow is not something to overcome but something to embrace, you step into a deeper form of strength, one rooted not in perfection, but in authenticity. True healing isn't about becoming flawless, it's about becoming real. The moment you make peace with the parts of yourself you once rejected, you reclaim the energy you've been using to hide. And in that wholeness, pain no longer defines you, it refines you. Chapter 6. Reframing pain as meaning. Pain by itself feels senseless, like chaos without a pattern. But the moment you begin to reframe it, the same experience that once broke you starts to reveal a deeper wisdom. This is not about denying your suffering, it's about transforming your relationship with it. When you shift from asking, "Why did this happen to me?" to "What is this trying to teach me?" pain stops being punishment and becomes purpose. The event doesn't change, your perception does, and that perception is where healing begins. Every painful experience carries a hidden curriculum, a lesson about strength, love, boundaries, or truth. The heartbreak that shattered you may have been life's way of redirecting you toward self-worth. The failure that humiliated you may have been the universe's invitation to discover your resilience. The loss that left you empty may have been preparing your heart to hold deeper compassion. Pain strips away illusions so that what's real can finally emerge. When you reframe your pain as a messenger rather than a mistake, you discover that every wound came bearing wisdom. Reframing pain doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means choosing to see value in what happened instead of only the suffering. It's acknowledging, yes, this hurt deeply, while also recognizing, but it grew me in ways comfort never could. Growth rarely comes through ease. It's carved through pressure. Diamonds form under immense heat. Muscles strengthen through resistance. Souls expand through adversity. When you accept this truth, you stop resisting life's hardships and start cooperating with their purpose. To begin reframing your pain, start by reflecting on past experiences that once felt unbearable. Ask yourself, what did this teach me that I could have never learned otherwise? You might realize that betrayal taught you discernment, loneliness taught you self-reliance, grief taught you the value of presence. These realizations don't erase the pain, they transform it into meaning. You begin to see that life wasn't happening against you, but for you, guiding you toward a deeper awareness of who you are. When you turn pain into meaning, you reclaim your power. You are no longer a victim of circumstances, but a participant in your own evolution. What once felt like a dead end becomes a doorway. The wound becomes wisdom, the scar becomes strength. You stop asking, when will the pain end? And start asking, how can I use this to serve something greater? That question changes everything, because purpose is what gives suffering its final form, transformation. Pain, when reframed, becomes sacred. It becomes the language through which life teaches you who you truly are, resilient, capable, and infinitely adaptable. Every hardship becomes part of your initiation into wisdom. You no longer fear the storms because you understand their role. They don't come to destroy you, they come to reveal your depth. Chapter 7. Transmutation of Grief into Fuel. Grief is one of the most powerful and misunderstood forces of human experience. It's not just sorrow, it's energy, raw and potent, waiting to be transformed. When loss strikes, whether it's the death of a loved one, the end of a dream, or the collapse of an identity, grief floods every part of you. It can make breathing feel heavy and the future seem meaningless. Yet within that darkness lies a sacred alchemy, the ability to turn grief into growth, heartbreak into strength, and emptiness into purpose. Grief comes because something mattered. It is the echo of love, attachment, and meaning. But when we resist it, when we suppress tears, numb our hearts, or distract ourselves with busyness, that energy stagnates. It doesn't disappear, it calcifies. The process of transmutation begins when we stop running from grief and allow ourselves to feel it fully. Grief demands presence, not avoidance. The tears you hold back are prayers waiting to be spoken. The ache you ignore is wisdom asking to be released. Transformation begins the moment you give grief permission to exist. Sit with it. Name it. Let it speak. Ask, what are you trying to show me? You may hear answers like, love was real. You cared deeply. You've outgrown what once was. Through that conversation, you realize grief isn't here to break you. It's here to clear you. It cleanses the soul of illusions and makes space for new understanding. Pain empties you so that meaning can fill you again. To turn grief into fuel, you must redirect its energy into something life-affirming. Some people write, paint, sing, or serve others. Others rebuild their lives around the lessons loss has taught them. The form doesn't matter. What matters is expression. Energy transforms through movement. When you channel your grief into creation, you're not erasing your pain, you're repurposing it. You're saying, this will not be the end of me, it will be the beginning of something deeper. Every great act of compassion, every work of art, every mission that changes lives, somewhere behind it, there's a story of loss that became a source of light. Because grief, when alchemized, becomes power. It teaches empathy, deepens perspective, and awakens gratitude. It reminds you that everything you have is temporary, and yet everything you give can be eternal. That realization doesn't erase the ache, but it infuses it with purpose. When you stop seeing grief as a force that takes and start seeing it as one that transforms, you reclaim your strength. The same pain that once broke you becomes the fire that refines you. You no longer run from the ashes, you rise from them. That's the essence of transmutation, turning what once weighed you down into the energy that propels you forward. Grief is not the end of love, it's love evolving into wisdom. Chapter 8. Service as Alchemy. There comes a point in every healing journey where your pain no longer asks to be understood, it asks to be used. This is the sacred transition from healing to service. When you turn your wounds into wisdom that helps others, you engage in the highest form of emotional alchemy. Service transforms personal suffering into collective light. It gives meaning to everything you've endured, anchoring your story in something greater than yourself. At first, the idea of helping others might feel impossible when you're still nursing your own pain. But service doesn't require perfection. It requires authenticity. You don't have to be fully healed to help. You only have to be willing to share your truth. Sometimes the most powerful medicine you can offer is your story, spoken with honesty, vulnerability, and compassion. Your scars become signposts for those still walking through the fire. By showing them that survival is possible, you turn your suffering into service. When you give, you shift your focus from what you lost to what you can offer. This shift alone begins to heal the remnants of despair. The energy that once looped inward, feeding sorrow and self-pity, begins to flow outward, feeding purpose. You start realizing that the pain you endured was not in vain. It was preparation. Life carved depth within you so that you could carry more light for others. Service doesn't erase pain, it transforms it into fuel for something sacred. There are countless ways to serve: mentoring someone going through what you once faced, creating something that uplifts others, volunteering, listening deeply, or simply offering kindness in moments when you once longed for it. Service is not about grand gestures, it's about presence. Every act of compassion is an act of creation. You are building bridges of meaning from your own broken pieces. And as you give, you find that the emptiness inside you quietly fills with peace. The greatest irony of healing is that it becomes complete only when it extends beyond you. When you lift another, you lift yourself higher. When you heal another's heart with your story, your own heart strengthens in the process. The energy of service purifies pain because it takes what was once self-focused and makes it sacredly selfless. It's the ultimate transmutation, turning the lead of suffering into the gold of contribution. Service reminds you that your journey matters, not because it was easy, but because it was real. Every tear, every doubt, every scar now serves a purpose beyond your own survival. In giving what you've gained, you fulfill the final step of transformation, becoming a vessel of meaning. Pain initiated you, healing shaped you, but service completes you. Chapter 9. Building a Purpose Practice. Purpose is not a single revelation, it's a rhythm. It's not something you stumble upon once and then live happily ever after. It's something you build, nurture, and return to daily. After pain has been transformed into meaning and service, the next step is learning how to live that meaning consistently. This is where healing evolves into a lifestyle, where purpose becomes practice. A purpose practice begins with alignment. Ask yourself each morning, what energy do I want to bring into the world today? Purpose isn't always about grand achievements. Sometimes it's about showing up with integrity in the small things, the way you listen, the way you work, the way you treat others when no one is watching. Every action becomes an offering when it's rooted in intention. This shift transforms routine into ritual and obligation into opportunity. To live purposefully, you must anchor yourself in values that reflect your truth. What do you stand for? Compassion, growth, honesty, peace. Your values become the compass guiding your actions when the world feels uncertain. They help you stay steady when emotions rise, reminding you that even if you can't control the circumstances, you can always choose the meaning you bring to them. That's what separates reaction from purpose. One comes from impulse, the other from clarity. A daily purpose practice also involves reflection and recalibration. Spend time in silence or journaling each day. Ask, where did I act from love today, and where did I act from fear? This honest questioning keeps your path alive and dynamic. Purpose is not static. It evolves as you do. Sometimes it expands outward into new projects, and other times it pulls inward into stillness. Both are sacred. Both are part of the same flow. And finally, surround yourself with purpose-driven energy. The people you engage with, the content you consume, the environments you inhabit, all of them influence your vibration. Purpose thrives in spaces of growth and dies in spaces of stagnation. Choose to feed your inner fire daily, not through pressure, but through devotion. Treat your purpose like a garden. Tend to it gently, water it with gratitude, and prune away distractions that steal your attention from what truly matters. When purpose becomes practice, every challenge becomes an invitation to express your higher self. Pain no longer threatens your peace because you've learned to use it. You wake up knowing that your life is not random. It's a deliberate canvas, painted with the colors of your choices. You live with meaning, not because life got easier, but because you got clearer. Purpose, in the end, is not about finding the right path. It's about walking every path with the right heart. It's the art of turning your ordinary days into extraordinary devotion. And when you live this way, your presence itself becomes your legacy, a living reminder that pain can be shaped into something beautiful and meaning is not found. It's created, one intentional act at a time. Chapter 10. A Life Redeemed. The Purpose Unfolds. There comes a moment, quiet but unmistakable, when you realize that the pain that once defined you no longer controls you. It's still part of your story, but no longer the author of it. You've changed, not by erasing what happened, but by transforming what it means. This is the essence of redemption. It's not about going back to who you were before the pain. It's about becoming who you were meant to be because of it. A life redeemed is one where suffering has fulfilled its sacred duty to awaken the soul and anchor it in purpose. When you look back, the pieces begin to make sense. The heartbreak that once felt unbearable taught you how to love without losing yourself. The rejection that crushed your confidence revealed your strength to stand alone. The failures that once made you doubt your worth shaped your resilience and humility. The storms that once seemed to destroy you were never meant to end you, they were meant to refine you. Redemption is seeing that every dark chapter was part of a divine curriculum designed to reveal your light. A redeemed life doesn't mean the absence of pain, it means the presence of peace. You no longer resist what comes or cling to what goes. You understand that everything, joy, sorrow, love, loss, is part of a greater unfolding. You've learned to trust the timing of your life, knowing that what leaves makes space for what's next, and what breaks open often blooms into something extraordinary. You no longer ask, "Why did this happen to me?" but rather, "What is life creating through me now?" That question marks the shift from survival to creation. Living a redeemed life means becoming a vessel of what you've learned. Your compassion deepens because you've known pain. Your wisdom expands because you've faced your shadows. Your strength radiates because you've rebuilt yourself from the inside out. You no longer seek validation or control, you simply embody truth. And that embodiment becomes your quiet offering to the world. You become the calm in chaos, the voice of hope for others still in the dark. Your presence itself becomes healing, not because you preach transformation, but because you are the transformation. Purpose, finally, reveals itself not as a destination, but as a way of being. You realize that your life's work is not about what you achieve, but what you become through every experience. The purpose unfolds naturally when you stop chasing meaning and start living with intention. It flows through every act of kindness, every word of encouragement, every moment you choose love over fear. In this way, your life becomes a living testament to one eternal truth. Pain may shape you, but purpose defines you. A life redeemed is not perfect. It's whole. It's a life that has looked at its own brokenness and decided to build something beautiful from it. It's a life that no longer hides from the past, but uses it as a lamp to light the way forward. And as you walk this path, you'll see that redemption isn't a moment. It's a rhythm. It's the continuous unfolding of who you're becoming when you choose meaning over misery, growth over bitterness, and purpose over pain. When the purpose unfolds, you no longer just live, you radiate. Every word, every choice, every step becomes a reflection of the journey that brought you here. You've turned pain into wisdom, wounds into wings, and grief into grace. And in doing so, you've discovered the greatest truth of all. The purpose of suffering was never to break you, it was to birth you. Conclusion: the redemption of pain. In the end, every story of healing is a story of becoming. Pain begins as a wound, sharp, confusing, and raw, but it was never meant to remain that way. It is the pressure through which strength is born, the fire through which truth is refined. What once felt like the end of your world slowly reveals itself as the beginning of your awakening. The journey from pain to purpose isn't about erasing your scars. It's about realizing they are proof that you've lived, learned, and transformed. Throughout this journey, you've walked through the storm, naming your hurt, facing your shadow, reframing your pain, and discovering that even grief can become fuel for something greater. You've seen that meaning is not found in avoiding suffering, but in understanding it. Pain, once reframed, becomes your teacher. Acceptance becomes your peace. And service, the final act of transmutation, becomes your way of giving light to others who are still lost in the dark. To turn pain into purpose is to step into partnership with life itself. It is the recognition that nothing you've been through was wasted. Every heartbreak shaped your capacity for empathy. Every loss expanded your depth. Every challenge strengthened your voice. Your story, with all its imperfections and detours, was always leading you here, to a life redeemed through understanding, compassion, and conscious choice. A redeemed life is not the absence of struggle, but the mastery of meaning. It's waking up each day with gratitude for the lessons behind your scars. It's choosing growth over resentment, courage over fear, and love over defense. It's realizing that your past didn't break you, it built you. And now, you carry that strength not as armor, but as light. So, as you close this chapter, remember, your purpose is not waiting somewhere outside you. It has been unfolding within you all along. The same fire that once burned you now fuels your brilliance. The same tears that once blinded you now cleanse your vision. You are the proof that pain can become beauty, that suffering can become service, and that every ending carries the seed of a new beginning. This is the redemption of pain, the quiet miracle of transformation. You've turned wounds into wisdom, loss into legacy, and struggle into strength. And as you move forward, may you never forget this truth. You were never broken. You were becoming. You've just journeyed through the transformation of pain, through grief, through awakening, through meaning, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more whole. This wasn't just a story about healing. It was a reminder that pain is not your enemy. It's your invitation. An invitation to grow, to love deeper, to rise higher, and to step into the person life has been shaping you to become all along. Every heartbreak, every failure, every loss you've endured, none of it was wasted. You didn't go through all that just to survive. You went through it to evolve. And now, as you walk forward, remember this. Pain only has power when it's left untransformed. But the moment you give it meaning, the moment you use it to serve, it becomes your greatest strength. So ask yourself, what story will you create from your scars? How will you use what hurt you to help heal the world around you? Because that's where your purpose lives, not in perfection, but in your willingness to rise again and again, carrying light born from the darkness you once feared. If this journey spoke to your heart, then stay connected to the stories that awaken, heal, and transform. Subscribe to Summary Shelf, where we dive deep into life-changing ideas that elevate your mind and strengthen your spirit. If this message resonated with you, leave a comment below and share how pain has shaped your path, because your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And always remember, your pain is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your power. This is Summary Shelf, reminding you that every wound holds wisdom, and every soul has a purpose waiting to unfold. You were never broken. You were becoming.